Hello guys, Oroth here and a warm welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to talk about legendary gems. And I want to talk about how most people are evaluating different legendary gems. Because I often see a common misconception where the logic is a little bit flawed, even if it might look very reasonable at first glance. So let me explain what I mean about this. And to do that, let us first take a look at the Mornskull gem. So if we look here at the Mornskull gem, what it does is that it will give us up to 36% increased damage for a certain duration. And in this case it is 6 seconds. And of course this duration can be prolonged by beneficial effect duration. So just to make this example more simple, let's pretend that we have 10 seconds uptime on the Mornskull effect. What most people then do is that they take this value, 36%, and then they divide it by half, because the reasoning is that the gem will be active for 10 seconds and then it will be inactive for 10 seconds. And it can only trigger once every 20 seconds. So this means that the effect will be up 50% of the time, hence the maximum value on average that we get from Mornskull is 18% extra damage. But this is actually not the right way to think about it, and I'm gonna explain to you exactly why. So there are other gems that also has this similar effect. If we take a Roiling Consequence, for example, we can see here that it also has a duration of 6 seconds and it can trigger once every 20 seconds. We can also see the same thing here on the Bottled Hope, that it can trigger for 6 seconds once every 20 seconds. And what I'm gonna show to you now is that you can't really think the way I just explained, because it's a lot more useful. If we go back here, for example, to the Mornskull gem, we want to have as much power as possible while other effects are active. And I'm gonna now do some calculations for you to show you exactly what my point is. So if you remember, using the Flawed Logic, we reached the conclusion that the Mornskull gives us 18% increased damage on average. So if we look at a gem like Pain Clasp that will give us 24% all the time, then Pain Clasp should probably be a little bit stronger. So yeah, with that logic that we just talked about, that makes sense. So if I have to make a choice between Mornskull and Pain Clasp, I will go for Pain Clasp. But now I'm going to show you why this is wrong. So let us do some calculations now on the Pain Clasp. And to make things simple, I want you to think about a situation where you are able to deal 100,000 damage every second. And then we're gonna make calculations on this 100,000 damage. So we start with 100,000 damage per second, and then we're gonna add some critical hit chance and critical hit damage. So what I have done here in this calculation is that I have equipped a rank 10 Roiling Consequence that will give me 42% increased critical hit chance for 6 seconds. But I'm also able to prolong this duration through beneficial effects duration, and this will give me a total duration of 10 seconds. So I will have 10 seconds when the Roiling Consequence is active, and then I will have 10 seconds where the Roiling Consequence is not active. On top of the critical hit chance I get from the Roiling Consequence, I also get 3% critical hit chance from the base critical hit chance that every character has. And what I then have to do is that if I have 45% critical hit chance while the Roiling Consequence is active, it means that I will deal a critical hit 45% of the time. And in this calculation, I have also said that I've been able to cap my critical hit damage. And the cap on critical hit damage is 100%, and on top of that, I also get 100% critical hit damage from the base critical hit damage that every character has. This means that whenever I land a critical hit, I will deal 3 times as much damage, because I will deal the normal damage plus 200% critical hit damage, and combined that will be 300%. But I will only do it 45% of the time. So if I dealt 100k damage every second before I added my critical hit chance and critical hit damage, at these values I will deal 1.9 times more damage. And what I do is that I take the critical hit chance, 45%, and I multiply it by my critical hit damage, which is 200%. And this gives me 0.9, and then I have to add +1 for the normal damage as well. This gives me a modifier of 1.9. So now I'm at 190k damage every second, and now I'm gonna add the pain clasp damage increase. That gives me 24%. And after that I'm gonna multiply again, because I also equipped a familiar with lingering wounds, and at max value that can give me 38.8% armor break on the target. And if I have a lot of potency and harmful effect duration, I can also prolong this duration to 10 seconds. So I started off with 100k damage per second, and then I have to multiply it by my critical hit chance modifier, and then I have to multiply it by my legendary gems modifiers, and in this case I only have the pain class that gives me 24% all the time. And then I have to multiply it with the armor break / buff category, and in this case I will deal 38.8% extra damage from lingering wounds. So in the first 10 seconds I will deal 3,270,128. And then I'm also gonna calculate the next 10 seconds, so from second 11 to 20. So I started off with 100k damage per second. Then I only have 3% crit chance, because I don't have Roiling Consequence active during this period. My crit damage is still the same, but then the modifier will be a lot lower, so now I will only deal around 6% more damage from the critical hit chance and critical hit damage. And on top of this I have to multiply with 1.24 from the 24% from the pain clasp. And now during this period of time the lingering wounds is also not active, because the cooldown on my familiar is also 20 seconds. So every 20 seconds I will apply lingering wounds. And this means that if I have a lot of harmful effect duration, it will only be up on the target 50% of the time on the training dummy, for example. So this gives me a damage output of around 1.3 million. So in total, over these 20 seconds, I will deal around 4.5 million. And you can also see that I deal tons of more damage while all of the positive effects are active during the first 10 seconds, and then the damage will drop off significantly. So now we have done the calculations for the pain clasp. But now we're gonna take a look at the Morn Skull calculations. So everything here is the same as in the pain clasp calculation, but the only thing I've done is that I switch out pain clasp for Morn Skull. So we can see that my damage have increased during the first 10 seconds, and it has increased a lot more than I lose during the second 10 seconds. So over the 20-second period we can see that I deal more damage with Morn Skull. And this is only when I have added Roiling Consequence and lingering wounds. If I would add more 20-second effects into this calculation, the Morn Skull will deal more and more and more damage compared to the pain clasp. So it's not as simple as the current logic that a lot of people are describing, that you can just see how long is the gem active and then you can derive the results from that. You have to look at every single detail here and make the calculations. And in general, the thumb rule is that if a gem has a certain duration and is not up all the time, but that effect is a lot stronger than the effects that are up all of the time, that will improve your results. And I can make an analogy. Let's pretend that you have a salary and you get paid each month. And then I come to you with two offers. I can either give you 50% salary increase all across the board, or I can give you an offer that you will keep the same salary as you have today, but I will give you 100% salary increase on Mondays. Of course, then one might think that, okay, well, Monday, that's only one day of the week. Of course, it's a lot better to make 50% more all the time than only 100% more on Mondays. Because there are 5 weekdays where I make money. So if I get 100% on a Monday and I don't get any increase on the rest of the weekdays, then the real increase will only be 20%. And this is using the flawed logic from the beginning of this video. But now we can see that you actually make a lot more money on Mondays. So if your salary was consisting of a specific pay each weekday, and let's say that you make 1 million on Mondays, and then you make 100k on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday, and the Friday. Of course, if I increase your salary on Mondays, that will have a lot greater effect compared to if I increase your salary on other weekdays. And it's the same thing with legendary gems. So if I can give you more damage increase while your damage is as high as it can be, which is during the beginning of the 20-second cycle, then that's more preferable compared to giving you a lower increase across all 20 seconds. So I hope that analogy maybe made it a little bit more pedagogical and logical for you. So now I've been showing you some calculations, and now I'm gonna also show you a way to evaluate exactly how much damage a switch of a gem will give you. So once again, I will illustrate this by doing some calculations, and I'm going to show you two different setups. So first, here we can take a look at setup 1, and here we can see all of the damage modifiers from the different gems I have equipped, and I will gain a total of 146% damage increase from these gems. And in this situation, let's pretend that I'm using a build that is 100% skill damage based, just to make it simple. So all of the damage we're going to calculate is skill damage, and all of these gems will affect all of my skill damage. So I get 146% extra damage when I equip these gems. So if I would make 100k damage every second before adding these gem modifiers, I would then add 246,000 damage after adding all of these modifiers. But as we can see here, I have a frozen heart in this setup, and this doesn't give me any type of damage increase whatsoever. So what I want to do is that I want to switch it out for something new. And then we have the Colossus Heart that at rank 10 will give me 50% skill damage. So let's switch out the frozen heart for the Colossus Heart instead. Then the total damage increase I will get from my legendary gems is 196%, and this is when I get the max value. So let's just pretend that we're gonna measure the damage over the first few seconds, so when the Colossus Heart will be active. So a lot of players, they look at the gems and they see like, wow, okay, I will gain 50% increased damage if I just switch out Frozen Heart for Colossus Heart, but that is also wrong. So what I have to do is that I have to take the original 100,000 damage before I was adding any type of legendary gem modifiers whatsoever, and then I multiply it by 2.46, so 100% for the 100k damage plus 146% from the setup 1. That means that with setup 1 I would deal 246,000 damage every second if I started with 100,000 damage. If I want to see how much I will increase if I switch out Frozen Heart for Colossus Heart, what I have to do is that I have to divide this 246,000 with the modifier from setup 1, which was 2.46, and then I have to multiply it with the new modifier from setup 2, that is 2.96, and that will give me a new damage value of 296,000 damage. So with setup 1 I would deal 246,000 damage every second, and with setup 2 I will deal 296,000 damage. And if I take the new damage value and subtract the old damage value, and then I divide it with the old damage value, I will get how many percentages I have increased my damage by doing this switch. And in this case it would be around 20% more damage. And this you can always do. You can use this formula if you want to see how much effect will this have on my total damage output if I make this switch. So I hope that this video was helpful to you when it comes to evaluating different legendary gems, and hopefully I opened some of your eyes, because yeah, most people have been doing it all wrong. And I also hope that the calculations we did here in the end can maybe help you to evaluate how great of an effect a certain switch of gems will have on your build. Because what I can say is that I often see now, for example with the new gem, we have to remember that the Colossus Heart will only affect skill damage. So once you equip this gem and you have a build that has maybe only 50% of the damage that is skill damage, the Colossus Heart will not be maybe the best option. But if you're playing an almost purely skill damage based build, then Colossus Heart will be massive. But it doesn't mean that it will break the game or anything, because yeah, it will not increase your damage by 50% for most people. But yeah, you have to make these calculations to see the actual damage output difference that it will provide. And what I also have to say here is that there are so many details that adds up to your total damage output. And I can see some people, they try this gem out and then they say, well, I tried it out to the training dummy and I only increased my damage by 10%. But I have to say that if you can increase your damage by 10% by only making one change in your setup that consists of hundreds different types of variables, then it's very, very strong. So yeah, the new Colossus Heart is a staple gem in many builds, and also it is not only increasing your damage, it is also giving you extra size and skill range, which is also worth a lot. So yeah, keep this in mind when you're evaluating gems, and don't think that one change alone will have massive effect on anything. It's always like that. Every little change you make will change your damage output by maybe 1% or a 0.5%. But if you focus on all of these details, that's when the magic starts to happen. So thanks a lot for tuning in to this video, and before we say goodbye, I want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening wherever you are. And to all of my clan members in Nyx, I would of course also like to say Voruk Nyx, Sholak Sol. So bye bye!